Perak Azov, Daf Nun, sponsored the Refuah Shleima for Binyamin Chaim ben Sarah. Let's review some of the laws of Onah according to the Mishnah and the Gemara of the previous Amud. The first opinion in the Mishnah is the Rabbanan who hold the basis for price fraud is a sixth. Number one, if the buyer paid less than a sixth more for the merchandise, the sale stands. Number two, if the buyer paid a sixth more, this is price fraud. The buyer can void a sale or demand a refund. Number three, if the buyer paid more than a sixth, either party can void the sale. The second opinion in the Mishnah is Rabbi Tarfon. He holds the basis of price fraud is a third. Today's staff will discuss if the rules are the same for the three categories, less than a third, and more than a third, as they are for the Rabbanan whose basis is a sixth. The Mishnah states a second machlokus between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Tarfon as to how much time the defrauded party has to retract. The Rabbanan hold that it is the amount of time it takes to show it to a third party. According to Rabbi Tarfon, the buyer has a whole day. The Mishnah states that initially merchants favored Rabbi Tarfon, but later reverted to the opinion of the Rabbanan. The Gemara begins with the machlokus of Rav and Shmuel. Rav holds that price fraud relates to charging a sixth more of the item's value. Shmuel holds that in addition it is related to a sixth more than what the one defrauded paid for the item. Although the Gemara was unable to prove Shmuel's opinion from the Mishnah, it did prove it from a brisa. The next discussion is a question posed. If the fraud was less than a sixth or a third, is the waiver immediate or only after the time he has to show it to another merchant or relative, similar to a price fraud of a sixth or a third? The Gemara initially understood if less than a sixth or a third is an immediate waiver, the merchants would not have preferred finally the opinion of the Rabbanan. The amount of the overcharge, the Rabbanan considered price fraud even to void the sale, according to Rabbi Tarfon, were immediate waivers. Since overcharges of a third were unusual, the additional time Rabbi Tarfon gave buyers to retract would not discourage merchants. However, if according to both they had time to retract for the Rabbanan less than a sixth and for Rabbi Tarfon less than a third, the longer time of Rabbi Tarfon creates the risk of returning the overcharge, whereas according to the Rabbanan, although the merchants run the risk of having the sale voided, since the time to retract is shorter, their chances of keeping the overcharge is greater. This would explain why they finally preferred the opinion of the Rabbanan. The Gemara rejected this proof by stating, according to Rabbi Tarfon, from a sixth to a third is not like less than a sixth, but its law is similar to a sixth. The difference is only whether both can void the sale or just the buyer. Therefore, the longer time of Rabbi Tarfon to demand a refund or void the sale was riskier for the merchants than the shorter time of the Rabbanan, even for an overcharge more than a sixth where both could void the sale. The initial preference of merchants with Rabbi Tarfon was a mistaken assumption that he required a shorter time frame for more than a sixth, whereas the Rabbanan required no time limit for the buyer to retract. Once they heard that Rabbi Tarfon allowed a full day, the difference of a full day and no time limit was no longer significant. The more common cases of price fraud were a sixth, not overpricing more than a sixth. Therefore, the shorter time frame of the Rabbanan was more preferred. The Gemara rejects this by answering that Rabbi Tarfon treated a sixth like less than a sixth, that the waiver was automatic. The merchants preferred this initially until he offered the buyers a full day to retract. The Gemara now discusses, according to the Rabbanan, where both parties can void the sale, there is no time limit to retract. Why did the merchants prefer the opinion of the Rabbanan? The Gemara answers, Bittul Mekach is not common. Therefore, the difference between the Rabbanan's no time limit opposed to the Rabbi Tarfon's time limit of a day is not significant enough to prefer Rabbi Tarfon. The more common case of price fraud is a sixth, where the Rabbanan's time limit is shorter. The Gemara concludes with the halacha. Number one, Rava states that less than a sixth, the sale stands without a refund. Number two, if the price fraud was more than a sixth, either party can void the sale. Number three, if the price fraud was a sixth, the sale stands, but the defrauder must return the difference as long as the defrauded claims a refund within the time he needs to show it to a third party.